I'm Mike Hocko, a commemorative curtain call, a weekly program of reviews, previews, interviews, and features of and or with the great art and artists on Maui and beyond. I'm Paul James Brown. As you may be aware, I was away for 2 shows, Steel Magnolias and Cabaret. Adam Lightplay kindly and most ably filled in while we traipsed around Manhattan. The reason for the trip was to attend my partner Pat Rouse's granddaughter's bat mitzvah on November 15th, which, most serendipitously, coincided with Dan Tepper's Carnegie Hall debut. Of course, since we were arriving 5 days before the events, I scheduled a few things. On Tuesday, we saw Kyoto at Lincoln Center. Wednesday is matinee day, so we saw Liberation and then went to see Messy White Gays. On Thursday, we saw Oratorio for Living Things, and then on Friday, we went to Zach Frank's brother-in-law, Lee Tribe's excellent show at the Victoria Monroe Gallery, then downtown to see his sister, Stephanie Frank's show of Kind of Blue at the Bowery Gallery. We finished the evening off with Oh Mary. Saturday was the bat mitzvah, then the party, and we slipped out for a 9 p.m. curtain for Dan Tepper at Carnegie Hall. Sunday was a farewell breakfast at this marvelous Mexican restaurant in Park Slope, and then it was into Manhattan for Little Bear Ridge Road. Right next to the Booth Theater is Junior's, which has the best cheesecake in New York City. On Monday, our plane didn't leave till 8:30 p.m., so we decided to take in the first retrospective of the work of Wilfredo Lamb at the Museum of Modern Art. We left in time for me to go to Trader Joe's to stock up on dark chocolate peanut butter cups. Kyoto is the story of the landmark environmental agreement that began in 1992 and culminated on December 11, 1997. This play marks the New York and Lincoln Center debut of Taina Tully, an Oahu native who has done most of Hawaii TV, including Rescue High Surf, Criminal Minds, Magnum P.I., and Love for Real. She trained at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. She plays the representative from Kiribati. She informs all the other delegates who are not that concerned about climate change that her island will disappear due to sea level rise. The other delegates don't seem to care. To them, her tiny island of fewer than 175,000 inhabitants is insignificant. She realizes every island in the Pacific will be impacted by sea level rise, and she organizes an alliance of Pacific Rim countries, and now the other delegates have to pay attention. Her performance was powerful and delivered with clarity and strength. Next, we saw Liberation. When you enter this show, you are given a bag to put your mobile phone into, and they lock the bag. When you see the opening of the second act, you will understand this. The show is based on a true story told in the present by Lizzie Susanna Flood about her mother, also Lizzie, who was a journalist in Ohio in the 70s and started a women's liberation consciousness-raising group in a basement gymnasium of a community recreation center. The play breaks the fourth wall from the start and throughout. The other 6 women are Susie Hurricane, Adina Verzin, an unhoused nomad who got thrown out of her New York place because her roommate didn't like her bird, and she hopes to drive a motorcycle to California. Then comes Celeste, Crystalline Lloyd, an overachieving African-American book editor who lives in New York but is, quote, here temporarily, unquote, went to Radcliffe, but was in the first group of graduates to get a Radcliffe and Harvard degree in 1963. The kapuna in the group is Margie, Betsy Idem. She is in an empty nest situation with a husband who watches TV all the time and needs something to get her out of the house so she doesn't stab him to death. Isadora, Irene Sofia Lucio, is a Sicilian filmmaker who has married an American for a green card. She is the most radical and stylish of all the group. Then there is Dora, Audrey Corsa, who thought it was a knitting circle. She has to leave her place on Thursdays because her roommate's fiance comes over for, quote, tea, unquote. She admits she didn't read the flyer and asks to stay. The play goes back and forth with Lizzie telling her mother's stories, and then becoming her. And then there is Joanne, Kayla Davion, who comes into the room to fetch her son's backpack. She plays a crucial role in the second act when Lizzie's father, Bill, Charlie Thurston, shows up, and Lizzie feels uncomfortable playing her mother in those circumstances, so Joanne steps in. One of the show-stopping moments comes when Margie recites all of the chores of a housewife, a 3-page list she posted vainly to see if her husband would take up on any of them. The play explores women's roles in the past and present, male chauvinism, sexuality, marriage, relationships, family, nostalgia, duplicity, mendacity, and so much more. It is a play that challenges one. It should be up for a Tony for Best Play. Oh, Mary is the story of Mary Todd Lincoln and what she does to end her terminal boredom and return to her previous life as a cabaret performer, much to the chagrin of her husband, played by John Allison Morrison. They should have a Tony for the best replacement for a Tony Award-winning show. Jane Krakowski would win. This show is Brooksian, as in Mel, funny. I thought I would pee myself, funny. That laugh that only comes a few times in a lifetime, funny. Just great. If you're going to New York before January 5th, get tickets for this performance. It is irreverent, bordering on unpatriotically insulting, but it is so over the top, it never gets there. All of the performances, especially Ms. Krakowski's, are top-notch, and you will have some of the best laughs in your life. Now we come to Little Bear Ridge Road, starring the transcendent Laurie Metcalf as Sarah, a former nurse who has terminal cancer. She is fiercely independent. Her nephew Ethan, Micah Stock, arrives. He is emotionally damaged from childhood trauma and is trying to find himself as a writer. He learns of his aunt's cancer and is determined to help. She doesn't want his or anyone else's help. In the meantime, Ethan meets James, John Dre, an astrophysicist. They proceed to have a relationship which, due to Ethan's unresolved trauma, ends unfulfilled. The play takes place over 2 years, 2020 to 2022, somewhere outside Troy, Idaho. It is a gripping drama fueled by a performance for the ages by Laurie Metcalf and great work from Mr. Stock. This is another one, should you find yourself in New York, to not miss. Finally, we come to Dan Tepfer's Carnegie Hall debut. Mr. Tepfer is well known here on Maui. He has been performing here since 2015, and besides myself and my partner, Pat Rouse, Matthew Goreyevich, Bobby Golden, who is attending Columbia, and Jim Price, all Maui folk, were in attendance. Zanko Hall was filled to nearly capacity, and this concert featured Mr. Tepfer's improvisations around his natural machines. This is an algorithm Mr. Tepfer created where he is able to visualize what he is playing, which is then projected on a screen behind him. Mr. Tepfer, who has been fascinated by improvisation, creating an entire piece of never-before-heard music since he started to play, he has developed a method where what he plays on the piano is transmitted to iPads on an orchestra music stands, and then they can improvise with him. For this performance, he chose one of the most adventurous orchestras, the Knights. Their website states, quote, "We imagine new possibilities for the art form as we explore a wide universe of music." It was a remarkable musical moment. But he wasn't finished. He then asked Becca Stevens, an astonishing vocalist, to join him on the only cover of the evening, My Funny Valentine, like no one has ever heard it done before. Finally, the great alto saxophonist Miguel Zenon came on to improvise with Mr. Tepfer and the orchestra. The audience knew they were present at the creation of a new art form that will only grow from there. Well, that's Curtain Call for this week. Mahalo nui loa for tuning in. I'm Paul James Brown, Maui Strong. Ahui ho.